Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Parts Talk. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Now today we're going to be continuing in our series about electric vehicles. As you know, it is something that's coming, it's not going away because it has been mandated by our various governments around the world in an effort to reduce the pollution in our environment and to try and save the planet, well, what's little that's left of it. But bear in mind, we have to also do a lot of mining for lithium and cobalt and everything else that's affecting the earth in order to build these EVs. So without further ado, let's get right into this video courtesy of Sky News Australia, entitled "Replacing Conventional Vehicles with Electrical and Hydrogen is Taking Billions." So let's hear what they have to say.
It just goes to show, though, doesn't it, how it's easy to talk about getting to net zero by 2050, but it's a hell of another thing to get there. That's why the International Energy Agency says it's impossible with current technology. And my next guest has crunched the numbers on just how implausible the switch to renewables and electric vehicles will be. Associate Professor Simon Michaux is a mining engineer from the Geological Survey of Finland. He joins me from Helsinki. Good to talk to you again, Professor. Tell us, the numbers you quote from your research are just astounding. First up, how many cars will we need to replace with electric vehicles by 2050?
Right, that's an interesting question. See, it depends on, are we going to replace the existing system or not? If we were, there is 1.4 billion vehicles estimated in the 2018 vehicle fleet. Right, so if we were to replace all them, now, I'm proposing some of them will be hydrogen fuel cells and some of them will be electric vehicles.
And remember, these are facts, data, and statistics as presented by the professor here, which is given his expert opinion. Now, there are far more materials used to manufacture EV, and he's going to break that down a little bit longer. But remember, getting to net zero means that we're going to be barring ICE vehicles from production by 2030 in an effort to reach this project.
Proposing all the heavy vehicles will have to be hydrogen fuel cell. We're talking billions.
Billions.
Certainly hundreds of millions. Yeah.
And tell us then, how many more minerals are used in an electric vehicle compared to a conventional vehicle?
So to build a conventional ICE vehicle, you've got mostly steel, a bit of magnesium, a bit of copper, and aluminium. But if you're going to build an EV, for example, electric vehicle, so you've got mostly aluminium, a lot less steel, but now you've got lithium, you've got cobalt, you've got nickel, you've got rare earths, and all of these things are relatively exotic compared to how we mine at the moment. We do mine these things, but they're in much smaller volumes. They're trace elements compared to things like magnesium, but now we want to mine them at rates of, like, say, copper and steel. And that's where the trouble starts.
And we need to actually mine them at quantities we don't have yet. We don't have as reserves. I'm going to put up one of the slides from your latest presentation here. And if we see on this graph, you see the red bar graphs show how much is required to get to 2050 net zero. And next to it, you've got various colours showing known reserves and possible extra reserves on land and under the water. And when it comes to copper, we need far more copper than we even know there is now. Lithium.
Yeah, there's over 4.5 billion tons of copper. And the reason why I'm smirking right now is because our political representative, they love to make bold statements sometimes without the empirical data in front of them. And as you know, the votes count. So they have to try to make everyone as happy as possible.
Dramatically more lithium than we actually know exists now. Is it actually possible to find and extract the minerals here that are required?
So not quite. That graph, the red column, is to replace the system as it is now completely. Like, all existing systems are now non-fossil fuels. The original work was to be done by 2030. Now they're saying net zero by 2050, so presumably it might do half of it. Yeah, so to answer your question, I don't believe it is possible without some drastic change in what we think we're doing. I mean, we don't have the time, we don't have the capital, and the resources just aren't there. And so no, we're not going to be able to do it. We're not going to be able to hit the targets as they are now.
Are you saying there actually is not the copper, the lithium, the nickel, the cobalt? It's just not there? Forget about whether we can mine it or not, but whether or not it's actually there.
You have to remember, the world is made of minerals. The entire Andes mountain range is one giant copper deposit that's really, really low grade. There is metals and seawater. So it's not a question of running out of copper. It's a question of our ability to extract that copper in a form that is useful. And that's where the trouble starts.
And at the moment, you would rate the chances of being able to do that by 2050 as impossible.
So bringing light to these events and everything that is happening is very important, and that is one of the reasons why I'm keeping the heat going on this particular channel, because politicians need to know exactly what their contributions are. Everything is a cause and effect. You want to save the environment one way, you want to please the environmentalists and the lobbyists in terms of saving the planet, but it also comes at a great cost.
Thanks for talking to us, Professor. I appreciate it. We'll keep in touch. That's Associate Professor Simon Michaux there in Finland. The numbers on this are astounding, and we'll keep looking at it because you're being sold a pup. People are telling you we can just do this, batten down the hatches, we can do it. We can't. And the other side of this, of course, is the expense.
And I'm glad he mentioned that. The other side of this is the expense and how expensive it has become, because EV manufacturing has caused thousands of people to be losing their jobs. We have seen startups that went about trying to keep up with the promise made by government only to falter after because they don't know what it takes in order to get manufacturing of certain cars up and going. If your manufacturing company hasn't been around for at least 15 to 20 years to have set the wheels in motion long before, then it will be totally impossible for you to compete. And if you check out my series on my YouTube channel here entitled How Dare You, then you'll get an idea of the articles and the information that are out there of the amount of companies that have shut down since. And we also have to mention the prices of these EVs will continue to increase year after year as the cost of production also increases. And one final note to my brothers and sisters working in the dealership: do not get complacent, do not get comfortable, because the tide is changing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to grab a copy of my ebook, The Parts Manager Guide. Please smash that like button on your way out. It will only take you 1.5 seconds to do so. Until next time.